Hey everyone, this is alexusadays, and we're continuing REST API testing with Postman. Today we're going to look into advanced API testing. We're getting closer to be done with the whole program. After that, we're just going to dive into some automation using Postman, and that's it. You should be ready to start testing using Postman REST API. Okay, so in this section for advanced API testing, we will expand our initial collection to cover key API testing techniques. We will look at schema validation. So we will verify that API responses follow the correct structure based on predefined schemas. And the schema essentially is like map, a foundation, how everything should be in the end, how everything should look, right? Then we will do some data type testing, so ensure that response values match the expected types, strings versus integers, and so on. Then we will do environment variables, so configure a test to run across multiple environments for flexibility. We will also look at store variables, so we can efficiently set and reuse variables across different requests. We will look at value generator, so create dynamic test data for more robust testing scenarios. We will verify response time for the API responses. We'll look at header validation, so inspect request response headers for proper configuration. We'll take a look at negative scenario, test how the API handles error conditions and invalid inputs, and we will make sure that there are no null or undefined fields if the field is required to be present. One thing that I want you to remember that Postman organizes variables into different scopes, each with a specific priority, depending on where the data originates. The hierarchy determines which variable is used when there are conflicts between variables from different sources. So the highest priority is local variables. So those variables that are specific to a single request or script. Then you have data variables that come from external data files that during collection runs. Then you have environment level variables that are specific to the environment where you are. Then you have collection level, and then you have global, and that would be lowest level where variables accessible across all collections and environments. So local will be accessed first, then data, then environment, then collection, and the last will be accessed is global. So we'll take a look at those. Now, we will be verifying schema, and there's a good site to generate schema from the JSON. You can use anyone that you like, or you can even type it out yourself if you want. And we will be using Postman dynamic variables, and I have links here where you can grab those. All right, so let's get into it. So what I have here opened is Postman, and we have Restful-booker right here. That's where we finished. So we're gonna have it as is without changing anything. Just duplicate it. So Restful-booker, and let's rename it to Restful-booker dash advanced. So we can add more things to it and kind of add more advanced things within this, so you can compare between the first one and the more advanced one. Now for the sites that we're going to be using, so still Restful-booker API to make sure everything is correct. We're testing against the correct things. There is dynamic variables here opened that Postman suggests we're going to be using that at some point. And here's JSON to JSON schema web page. So that's I'm going to use to start with schema assertions. Okay, so one of the hardest thing, or not the hardest, but maybe more complex things to understand is schema validation if you've never worked with schema. So we're going to start with that and going to get it out of the way immediately. So when we created our booking, we sent a request and we got a response. This response body has key value pairs, and the data type that might be coming back has to be the same, even though the response itself might be different. Like every time the ID is new, I can have a different last name, first name, the date, total price. All of those values can be different, but the structure of the response and data type have to be as per schema. So like the schema is the map, the foundation, right? So like if you're building a house, you have a blueprint, and it tells you how many rooms there are, where's kitchen, where's bathroom, and so on. So schema is kind of the same thing, right? So how do we validate schema? So that's a lot of fields here. If we go to the scripts, let's add first schema variable. So we're going to say const schema and equals, and we're going to have this object here essentially, right? JSON object. And we could type it out like line by line ourselves. You have to start with type, and the type for the value that we're getting back was in the object. So, but that's going to be a lot of typing. If you go in each field, you have to define like properties and so on and so on. So you can just grab the response and make sure that this response is corresponding with the API documentation response, right? So you create booking in the API. So there's a request body and then there's a response body here. So the data type, first name is a string. So the booking is the object, booking ID is a number. So number or integer, essentially same thing. Total price, right, is a number, and so on and so on. Field by field, like booking dates is an object that contains check-in and check-out, and those are dates or strings. So the data type is matching the documentation what the actual API is returning. Because if you're copy pasting and creating a schema from the response, you want to make sure that the response is correct, right? So let's grab, so right click copy, and let's go to transform.tools /JSON-2-JSON-schema. All right, so I'm gonna paste this here. Let's delete it. And I have now a schema generated, right? This is all schema. So I can just copy this generated schema, go back to Postman, and paste it right here. One thing that I don't need is the schema variable. That is, we're going to remove that. And the title. All right, so we don't need that. But we have everything else we need here. So type of the response, it is an object response. This whole thing is an object. The properties are, so booking ID, that's one, and then booking, that's two. Right? Now within those properties, within booking ID, I have type number. So type of this is number. Maybe if I have it like in one line, it's a little bit more clear. Now booking, the type of booking is actually an object. And because it is an object, within the object, I have a bunch of properties. And now then I have first name, type is a string, last name, type as a string. I just move it all in one line so it's easier to read. The formatting of it, the proper way how it's formatted, is the one that you have here. But just because there's so many fields, I want it to be more compact. So total price, deposit paid, its type is Boolean. Booking dates, again, its type is object, and within this object I have a bunch of properties, right? So I have check-in, and for the check-in type, right here is our check-in, right? It's a string. And you might notice the schema, the actual schema says it's a date, right? But the response here is a string. So those things, when you have mismatch in data type in the response, actual response, and documentation, you have to discuss this with your QA manager or project manager or developer, whoever. Now we have some required. So within this property right here, there is a required field, right? And this required field says check-in is required and check-out is required. If something is not within the required list here, that means the value is optional. If I don't have check-in or check-out, that means I can have a request or response without any of those values. Then there's additional need. Again, type is a string for additional needs. So kind of making it more compact. Now, then there's this property. Within this property, we have all those specific fields. So first name, last name, total price, deposit paid, booking dates, additional needs, and so on. And now we have required for all of those. Like we're checking what is required. Is first name required? Yes. Is last name required? Yes. Total price required? Yes. Deposit paid required? Yes. Booking dates required? Yes. Additional needs, is that a required field? In the API, typically it will mark what is required, what is not. In this specific API version or documentation, it has optional. So my assumption is what is optional, not required. Everything else is required. But for our sake, let's say additional needs is optional. So as soon as I delete additional needs from the required here, that means now I can have responses without additional needs, and it will not validate my schema verification. Okay. All right, so booking ID is required. And booking is required. All right, so here's our schema. A little bit misformatted, just for like better visuals of it. I can just collapse the whole thing. That's a schema, and it's generated based on this response. It's looking at the number of fields, what are those fields, what data type was in those fields, what fields are required, what are not required. Now we can actually do an assertion for that. So let's do pm.test. And here we're going to say verify schema is validating or validated, or verify response is matching. Response is matching required schema, something like that. It's just the name of the test. Here we'll have to add a function, right? And within parentheses, we open parentheses. We need to say pm dot response dot to dot have and dot JSON schema, and we need to pass inside the JSON schema method here what schema we're validating. So this variable where the schema is stored, just passing along inside here like that, and let's send it. All right, and it's passing. You can see verify response is matching. This response is matching the schema. Like it doesn't matter what I have here in terms of response, as long as it matches the schema we're going to pass. If I, for example, let's say instead of total price, I will say null. Can I do that? Not null, but null. So I'm sending no total price at all in my create request. Let's send it out. Okay, it actually does 500. The server errors out. It doesn't accept null for this field. So let's give it back total price. What about deposit pay? Can I have a null here? And I'm kind of breaking API right now. I'm sending things that are not expected, but I just want to get a response with null and see how it fails the schema validation. Send it again, server error. So null is not good here. How about last name? Maybe. Can I have it null? No, none of that is working. Where can I update value? Okay, let's say total price. I'm gonna send it empty, just an empty string. Okay, here we go. We actually managed to get total price null because I left it empty. I sent an empty string. There was no value, so the server defaulted to null. Now you can go into the response and you can see in test results, verify responses matching required schema, assertion error, expected data to satisfy schema but found fallen errors. So data.booking.total price should be number. So if I'll go in my schema, in the scripts, in the post response, it talks about data.booking. So properties, booking, and then total price. It should be a number. You see here, number or integer, but instead of receiving total price type number, I managed to break the API here, and now total price is giving me null. I can say instead of number to have null, and then send it, and now it's passing. But we don't want to have null here, right? Unless we verify against multiple possible data types, we don't really want to have null. We actually want to have a number. So total price is going to be, I will put it 999,000, whatever. Send it, and it's passing. So this is actually a number. The data type is there, and you can see the test is green. It passes good. Perfect. So the schema is valid. Now, sometimes you don't want to verify the whole schema, right? Sometimes you just want to verify a field or two. That's it. So for that, let's just minimize. You can have specific tests. So pm.test. And let me move this a little bit. So pm.test, verify. What are we going to verify? So verify data type for, let's do first name, let's do total price, and let's do deposit paid. So 3 fields. Okay, I'm going to say function, and within the function I want to do pm.expect and response dot, what are we looking here? Response dot, so booking dot, and here we go, first name. So we're looking at the first name dot to dot b a, and here we want to say string. So that means the data type here for the first name should be text. Run it. Okay, it's passing, right? Now I need to add the remaining fields. So I verified the first name. I'm going to copy the whole thing. So copy paste, total price, and deposit paid. So total price is a number, right? So we verify this is number. And deposit is paid or not, true, false, it's a Boolean. So data types. So we're creating booking, we have a schema, we're validating schema, and then we're validating particular data types field by field. Send it, and we got 200 OK, and everything is passing. I'm going to save this to make sure this is up to date and saved. All right, great. So now let's store a token. So remember, in authorization here, we have a token that we generate that we later use to update booking. What if I save this as a variable and now reuse it in different environments? Like here I have dev and test environments. I can click on the environments, and let's say I'm going to delete this. So if you work with test, you will pull values from this environment. If you work in develop, you can pull values from develop environment and use in your test. So for now, we're just going to have test here. Let's go to collections, and here for authorization request, when we send it, we get back a token, right? Now, how can I grab that token and save it? I want to do that. So let's go to scripts, post response, and let's add a comment here. Set env token from the response. Okay. Now all I need to do is const. Let's grab the response. So const response is equal to JSON response. pm.response.json. Okay, so we're storing this in a variable response. Now we do pm.environment.set, and first we add the name. So let's have the name for this token underscore value. So that's going to be the name for the variable. And the actual value that we're saving is response dot token. So this guy right here will be saved in this variable. Send it one more time. Let's also save it and go to environment. Let's go to our test environment. Now we have variable token value with this particular value being set. Perfect. So we are saving the response token from this request. That's awesome. Now, what can we do next? Well, remember we have a put request that we send out, and it's not going to work without a token. So I'm going to create new booking. It generated ID 3363, and then I'm going to go and try to update it. And it's forbidden. Now, we were setting cookie here and then the token value. And we can do it here in this field. We can just remove this and add two parentheses. And it also starts out as suggesting. Here's token value, and it's all set. It shows as environment variable. You see it's green. Global is blue G. So it says E, token value. Now I'm going to set it from here, from the header. Run it, and it's working. What if I disable it, right? Save it. I'll send it. Now I get 403. It's not working. What if I go to scripts and I try to get it using the script, not just from the header? And I can do that. So I can say const in prerequisite. Now I'm doing it in prerequisite. So const token value, right, is equal pm.environment. So I'm just grabbing this as essentially .get, and we need to provide the environment and its token value, right? So token value, their environment variable. Okay. And here we now want to add it to the header. So we can say pm.request.header headers.add. So what are we adding? We want to have key, and the key in this case is cookie, right? So key is cookie. And then we want to have value. And for the value, we have a backtick, so I can incorporate a variable in the string. So token equals question mark, and here within the parentheses, I'm going to add token value. Right? Now let's send it out, and it works again. And we go to the console, right here. Let's clear it, clear console, and send it one more time. Here's our put request. Here is our cookie that is set to token being equal to a value passed along, and this value is coming from the environments and from the token value variable set in the environments, right, on this level. That is very good. Perfect. All right. Now, I need to update every time I do a request, like here, to a particular ID, I need to update the ID. If I went and posted new booking, I will get a new booking ID. So does it mean every time I have to manually update the IDs for the endpoints to get the new booking ID, to update it, and so on? Absolutely not. Now we can actually store it as a variable. Now, instead of environment variable, let's store response booking ID as a collection variable. So here in the folder level, right? Let's go in scripts and say PM dot collection variables dot set, and here we're going to add booking ID, right? And where is it coming from? So it is coming from so response dot booking ID from here, this field. Okay, and the variable will be set. Let's send it out. Let's go to the collection level. Let's go to the variables, and here's booking ID is being now set with 711. So here in the response, I can see 711. Now, every time I am reaching out to a booking, I can just use booking ID. And now you see it's a C, the orange one. So it says collection, scope is collection, token is environment. This all stuff are global. Now, scope for booking ID is collection. All right, let's add it. Now we can run it and actually save. Let's save everything. Like I don't want anything to be here unsaved. Close it all out. Whatever is not saved, we're gonna save it. So we authorized and grabbed the token. We created a booking and grabbed booking ID from the response. We go to get booking that we created, and it grabs booking ID here from the collection level variable. Perfect. We can update it and also have it set here as a variable. And you can set like environment, dev, test, and production, and have your link change here coming from a variable based on the environment where you're working in. So update. This is getting the booking after the update, then deleting a particular booking that has an ID, and then verifying that it was deleted. So I essentially updated everywhere we use that booking ID to make sure once we generated it from the post, it passed along, or all other requests can use the same exact ID. They are going for the same created booking. Okay, good. Now, let's add some random data that we can get. So in this post, we're passing a body and there's last name and it's always Brown. Like I don't want the same last name. I want some uniqueness into my data. And for that, you can use built-in generated dynamic variables that Postman provides. For example, there is random last name. And I'm just going to grab that. Make sure you grab everything, including the $sign. So I'll grab that, copy, go to my request body, and the last name now will be something. So here in quotes, in double parentheses, like so, you see how it changed. I paste in $sign random last name. Let's send it. And Akunova, Graham. So you can see how it's actually setting it up, right? And if you want to further verify that it's been passed along when you work with it, you can go to scripts and you can actually, on the collection variable, let's say set, and we'll call it last last name, right? Last name, and it's coming from response dot booking dot last name. All right, let me send this out. Save it, send it. Let's go to environment, test. Let's go to, oh, it's collection level, sorry. Let's go to collection variables, last name, hints. Perfect. Now, every time I create a request, I get this value. All right. And it's stored. Now, when I'm doing assertion, I can say that PM test verify last name is, and what are we doing? We want to make sure that it's coming from, and it is dynamic, right? Something like that. So we're using set in this case. So I'm just going to grab it. And here I'm going to store it. So const last name is equal to, and we want to grab it from the collection variables. So PM collection environment variables get, and we're getting last name variable, this one. Right? Last name. Okay, so we will store this collection variable inside last name, and then we will verify that response dot last name is equal to this last name that we stored. Let's run it. Set to dynamic. Assertion undefined is equal to hints. Collection variable. Okay, so I think there's a typo somewhere. Const last name PM dot collection variables dot get last name. Run it. Expected undefined response dot. Okay, so I have a typo here. I'm saying last name from response, but last name in the response doesn't have a capital N. So update it, run it, and here we go. So now we dynamically verify. So every time I create a booking, it generates a random ID and generates random last name. And I'm using booking ID here that was generated, and I'm using last name, grabbing it from collection variables here and verifying it in my test. That whatever I generated and then saved, I also get after running the GET request based on the ID that we just generated. Not found. Booking ID not found. Well, let's create a new one. Let's send it. Here it is. Yeah, so the thing is, with Booking API, it does clears out the request that's being sent, so the data that is being sent. So if it said not found, just try to regenerate one more time. All right, perfect. Now, let's assert that it is fast enough. So let's say we're doing put request. This is prerequisite. We don't need prerequisite. It just has a cookie here. There's a post response. We're doing update. It's forbidden. Let's generate new token. Let's send another update. Perfect. You see how it's convenient? You don't have to copy paste the token now. You just click one click there, it generates, grabs it, sets it as an environment variable. You go to put, you send it out, it grabs it, and there's no issue. Everything runs through smoothly, right? Now we want to assert the response time. Here, it says 68 milliseconds. So some companies, you'll have a requirement for your API that has to be at certain speed. So we can say PM test response time is under 500 milliseconds. So that's pretty typical. You might see 1,000. I worked in places where they accepted up to like 2,000 delay because there's like complex logic behind the scenes. So PM dot expect expect PM dot response time. You see how convenient it just suggests you what kind of methods are available. 2 dot b dot below, and here you just provide a number, and that's going to be milliseconds, so 500. Let's send it out. Let me save this. So something failed. Response has to be below 500, but it actually was 3 seconds. 500 milliseconds, and it was 3 seconds something. Let's send it one more time. Now it passes. All right, 73 milliseconds. So a good metric to have to make sure your API is consistently fast. Now, sometimes you need to verify headers, so you can say pm.test verify content type in header response, right? Response. Okay, here we go. Let's create a function, and here within parentheses we're going to add the logic. So pm dot response dot to dot have dot header, and if we go into our put request in console, here is request header, and here's response header, and then here's content type. It's application. Again, this is request, this is response. Content type application JSON charset equals UTF-8. Let's grab that, and we're gonna add it. I'm gonna close the console for now. We're gonna add it here in quotes like this. Let's send it out. Application response to have header with key application. Oh, so this is, I need to provide the key, right? So this is value. What is the key here? So key is, we're looking at, going back to the console, key is content type, right? Right here. This is the key, this is the value. So let's provide the key. It's also in quotes, content type within quotes, separated by a comma, and send it out. All right. Content type is passing. Perfect. Let's save it. Yeah, sometimes it's gonna get like, it gets hard to manage tabs, so make sure you're pretty consistent on saving stuff when you use it. Otherwise, it just might get cluttered and you start closing them out. You didn't save things for a while. You change multiple things, and then like, okay, what did I change? Right? It becomes a little problematic. All right, so the next one is actually a negative test case, and we do have a scenario, believe it or not, where we delete booking, and even though this response is bad response, so the API is broken in the sense how it's implemented should be said not found, right? But then we try to reach out to the same ID that we deleted, and we get not found 404. So this is a good example of invalid data, right? We're trying to retrieve invalid data and like a negative scenario in this particular case. So status code 404 is for invalid, deleted, booking ID. So even though this is a negative test case, right? User not supposed to try to retrieve a value that is not there, but it is necessary. So we are actually perform some action to delete this record and we want to make sure that the record is deleted and it's no longer there. All right, perfect. And the last thing, let's say we do another get here. Not found, so we need to create one. Let's do an update. Let's create send a request to updated booking. All right, so it's changed back to brown. In this put body changed back to brown. We're receiving it. It is brown. Here scripts. Okay, what else we can verify? So sometimes we don't know the data type. Maybe it's not that important. Maybe there's like multiple things. But what is important, it's actually not null. Like when we had a null response, I don't want to have a null and I want the value to be defined, right? So we can add a test for that. So pm dot test and let's say verify value, verify, let's say last name. Or was it, I think we were doing total price, right? When we were sending empty. So total price is not null and not undefined. Okay. And then function. Here was in parentheses, we're going to say pm dot expect. And then here we want to have response, right? Response dot total price. Response dot total. You're not finding it? Okay, I think it's finding it. All right. Response dot total price. And then here dot to dot not dot b dot null. Okay. And then one more assertion here. Expect response total price not to be undefined. Let's run it. Test passing. 4 out of 4. Good. But let's say in my put request here, in the total price, I'm providing an empty string. Okay. And we know that's going to trigger a null response. Send it, and I get null here now. Now I get to retrieve this booking again while I'll updated it to have null, and I have null check in my test. Let's send it. Oh, it fails. What happened? Well, in the body we have deposit paid, total price being null, and we have a test that specifically looking into that field and verifying that it is not null. So because it is, the test fails. All right. Let's update it back to some value here. Let's say 1,000. Let's send it. Forbidden because I need to get authorization. One more time. Is it? Not allowed. So I need to create a booking. Now I should be able to update that booking because again, the server deleted all our records to keep it clear, right? And I'm gonna do a get request one more time, and we verify that the total price is actually is not null, and we know it is 1,000, what we've said. Okay, so this is it. I think this should give you a very good level of control over your Postman collection, your requests and responses, variables, and options that you have for verifying data that is coming back, right? Remember, test against the API documentation. see what are priorities, verify what is optional, what is not optional, which values are required, verify the status codes are correct, verify the data types are correct, and it's matching what's in documentation. Verify negative responses if you try to break API, right? And feel free to refer to Postman documentation page. Like there's a search, you can start looking for things. Feel free to use dynamic variables. Feel free to use schema generator if you have a response and you need to assert schema. Okay. And I know it's a lot, right? This is a pretty complex thing right now. There's a lot of things that we covered, but rewatch the video, pause it, type things out. The only way how you're going to pick it up is by learning and doing, right? That's the way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to forget it tomorrow. So make sure you're actually repeating everything we do here and you spend some time with it. All right. Well, hopefully this video was helpful. This was Alex Days. Thank you for watching and bye bye.